My guy Luke Willson is looking like Don Johnson in season 3 of Miami Vice. I mean, this turtleneck's working for you.
Jay, Wednesday night, a little chilly outside. I figured it was a vibe tonight.
I think it's a great vibe. Bills are riding a nice little wave of positivity. You heard some great words from Stephon Diggs there about Josh Allen. They're outside of a wild card spot at this point, Luke, at 6-5. And now they've got a real tough schedule, and you and I have been talking about it for a week. So you've got Philly this weekend. You follow that up with the Chiefs. Then you got the Cowboys. But did that win over the Jets this past weekend give you a little bit of hope that maybe they could handle themselves against these three tough teams?
It definitely gave me some hope, Jay, because although the Jets' offense is awful and has a ton of problems, this defense is very, very stout for the Jets, and the Bills really had their way with them. They looked good. They looked fluid. They were in rhythm. Josh Allen had one turnover, which was a Hail Mary pass at the end of the half, so I'm not counting that. So for the Bills' offense, which has been, not even close to playing to its potential, to come out there against a very, very good NFL defense and do that should give Bills fans and Bills Mafia a lot of hope. Now, on the flip side, Jay, where I get a little worried here is that this gauntlet of teams is going to score a lot more points than the Jets. And that's going to put more pressure on this Bills offense to perform. And then I'll also say Joe Brady, the new offensive coordinator, will be studied. So, yes, it's the same offense, same players. You're going to be watching all sorts of Bills film. But each OC has a different variety, a different way that they like to call games in certain situations. And it's going to be harder and harder and harder for Joe Brady once teams can watch the film and find the tendencies of what he likes and doesn't like to do. And then the last thing I'll say, Jay, which I just got to throw this in there, is the interviews we just listened to are the strangest things I've heard in a very, very long time. I mean, you're talking Josh Allen, who's MVP talent, ends the interview with, I got to show my guys that I care. Stephon Diggs is talking like, it's glad to see Josh is back. Again, in my time in the league, I played with a lot of talented players, and we just never spoke like that, especially to the media. And I really believe that there's a lot of issues in this locker room that is bleeding onto the field, and that is why they haven't been able to perform as well as we all thought they would offensively.
Okay, taking us behind the curtain. I like that because for the rest of us, you're thinking, oh, that's all positive. But, yeah, it is a little bit strange. Also strange is the fact that Travis Kelce, we were talking so positively about him all season and how great he played when Taylor Swift was in the building. She wasn't there last week, and it didn't work out so well against the Eagles. And now Kelce, 5 TDs through 10 games this season. He had 11 TDs through 10 games last season. His play last year, Luke, really covered up the fact that Patty Mahomes maybe didn't have the receiving help he needed. The Chiefs get to the Super Bowl. They win it. Can they do it again if Kelce doesn't start to play like he did last season?
No, they cannot. The problem is we're into week 12 right now, Jay. You look at this receiving core outside of Travis Kelce, and these guys have struggled. I thought there were a lot of games where they've struggled to even get open, create separation. And then when they do get open, they're leading the league in drops. And we saw that on Monday night against the Eagles. They had that game in the bag. They were running the ball. Everything was working well. They catch a few of these balls there, and they do enough, in my opinion, to put the Eagles away. They let a great team like the Eagles back into it, and we all know what happened. You talk about Travis Kelce right now, and I do see him performing at extremely high level, but I do worry, Jay. I worry because I read some comments from him, and I'm not sure how long ago he said this, but he was talking about retirement. And let's think about the personal side of Travis Kelce right now. This guy has become a household name beyond football because of who he's dating. He's traveling all over the place. He's 33, going on 34 years old. He's done everything he can. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, won Super Bowls, one of the best to ever do it, might be the best pass-catching tight end to ever do it. What motivation does this man have left? He's banged up. In this quote I read, he was talking about, I feel every surgery that I've ever had, the injuries. And to me, you can see him laboring a bit in games. He's still the number one pass-catching tight end in the NFL. Do not get it twisted there. But I sit there, they're bracketing him. He's got no help around him to take that coverage off him. I don't know if he's going to have as consistent of the explosive, crazy games. And there's no one around Kansas City who has stepped up yet to help the situation. if Rashee Rice or Kadarius Toney or Justin Watson or one of these guys can establish themselves as that go-to number 2 guy, I think the Chiefs are right in the conversation again, but they need desperately to find out who that is.
Okay, let's talk about the NFL MVP. It still seems very wide open through 11 weeks. Jalen Hurts now the front runner according to FanDuel, followed by 10 other quarterbacks, Luke. 10 other quarterbacks. You got to go all the way down to 12 to find skill position players like Christian McCaffrey, followed by Tyreek Hill. A.J. Brown is on the list, Eagles. You know, I mentioned it's wide open, Luke. It does still feel wide open. So because it's so wide open, is this the year maybe we see a skilled player, someone other than a quarterback, win it for the first time since Adrian Peterson did it in 2012?
I think there's a very good possibility, and if it's not going to be a quarterback, where I lean pretty obvious here is CMC. And the reason being is, and there's a ton of conversation, Jay, about what is MVP, what is the most valuable player. And to me, you take CMC out of this offense, and it's completely different. He's a legitimate threat as a receiver, as a slot, catching the ball out of the backfield. The touchdowns are absurd. I mean, he's a tremendous runner. The man right now has a shade under 1,200 all-purpose yards. He's got 14 touchdowns. And even when he's not touching the ball, if you watch this 49ers offense, they use him as a decoy that opens everything else up. And I'm not saying – clearly, they have a ton of talent on that Niners offense, a ton. But CMC is a head and shoulders above everybody else, and I really believe that part of the reason Brock Purdy is having perfect game ratings like he did in the last game is because they have such a phenomenal player in CMC that is almost impossible to guard. He's a matchup nightmare in the pass game. He runs the ball outside. He's got enough bursts to break long runs. And what I think he doesn't get enough credit for is he runs hard in between the tackles. He's a complete player. And again, I really think he should be considered in this conversation with a quarterback.
Strong finish for him, and he might be in that conversation.